Forest Mysteries. The first light of dawn seeped through the tangled canopy, casting fractured rays of amber onto the damp, leaf-strewn floor. A cold mist clung low, curling around gnarled roots and moss-coated stones, shrouding the forest in a ghostly haze. Liam moved cautiously, his paws muffled by a carpet of fallen pine needles and decaying leaves, every step deliberate and quiet. His breath fogged in the crisp air, carrying the scent of damp earth mingled with distant floral notes. Yet the silence pressed heavily, broken only by the faint, rhythmic calls of unseen birds echoing high above. He paused, ears twitching at every subtle sound. The unfamiliar terrain stretched endlessly, shadows flickering with each heartbeat, shifting unpredictably. His golden eyes darted, scanning for signs of danger or companionship, but the scent trail of his pack was obscured, lost amidst the maze of greenery, leaving him with a prickling sense of vulnerability. Every rustle, every whisper of wind seemed amplified, setting his nerves on edge and sharpening his instincts. A sudden snap of a twig behind him froze Liam mid-step. His muscles tensed instinctively, senses sharpening as he spun around slowly, ears straining for movement. For a moment, all he saw was the sway of branches and the slight rustle of leaves stirred by the breeze. Yet, a prickling sensation crawled along his spine, as if unseen eyes watched him from the shadows. The forest around him felt alive with silent vigilance, and he sensed an entity lurking nearby, silent, hidden, observing. He hesitated, torn between curiosity and caution. The instinct to investigate tugged at him, but a whisper of unease warned him to hold back. Memories of past encounters with predators flashed through his mind, how curiosity had once led him into danger. His paws pressed deeper into the earth, claws gripping the moist soil, ready to retreat if necessary. The weak sunlight struggled through the thick foliage, casting shifting patches of light and darkness that danced around him like a living mosaic. From a cluster of bushes nearby, a faint rustling broke the silence. Liam's ears perked forward, muscles tensing further. He slowly lowered himself behind a fallen log, eyes fixed on the dark thicket, nostrils flaring to catch any scent. The air grew heavier, thick with anticipation. Something was there, perhaps a small creature, or was something more ominous. His heartbeat quickened, not out of fear alone, but because an inexplicable sense of purpose stirred within him, compelling him to stay alert. Suddenly, a shadow flickered, an elusive movement that vanished behind tangled branches. Liam's breath hitched, muscles coiling as if readying to spring or retreat. He inched forward cautiously, driven by a mix of curiosity and instinct. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what might emerge. A faint, almost whispering sound drifted through the air, soft, human-like, a gentle sigh carried by the wind. Liam's ears twitched as he tried to interpret it. Was it a friend or a threat? His internal conflict deepened, yet he knew he couldn't remain hidden forever. The presence had made itself known in a subtle but unmistakable way. He lifted his nose, inhaling again. The scent was faint but unfamiliar, earthy, mossy, tinged with a metallic tang. His eyes darted around, seeking clues, trying to decipher what this meant. The mist curled around him, cloaking his form in ghostly shrouds, while each breath he took was measured and cautious, as if the forest itself was holding its breath along with him. A distant call shattered the stillness, urgent, piercing, pulling his attention sharply. Liam's ears flicked upward, alert. He understood he could no longer ignore it. His mind raced. Should he stay hidden and observe, or move toward the sound? The decision pressed heavily, as if the woods were asking him to choose. His paws itched to explore, yet his instincts urged restraint. He took a slow step forward, paws sinking into the damp earth. Shadows deepened, curling around him like protective veils. Every muscle tensed, ready to retreat or advance at a moment's notice. The unseen presence lingered just beyond his sight, a silent watcher in the dawn's awakening light. Then, from the darkness, a pair of glowing eyes opened, steady, unblinking, fixed directly on him. Liam froze again, heart pounding, a mixture of apprehension and fascination flooding through him. The eyes belonged to something unseen, an entity that had been silently observing him, its gaze calm but intense. No hostility radiated from them, only curiosity. Yet their unwavering stare made him acutely aware of his solitude in this vast, mysterious forest, an environment both beautiful and perilous. As moments stretched, Liam realized that this encounter marked a turning point. The presence was no longer just a vague shadow in his peripheral vision. It was a sign that he was no longer entirely alone. The forest around him seemed to pulse with secrets waiting to be uncovered, alive with unseen forces. His internal conflict softened slightly. Curiosity now mingled with a cautious resolve. He hesitated briefly, then slowly lifted his head, nostrils flaring once more. The metallic scent lingered, mingling with the earthy aroma. He edged forward, eyes locked on the glowing orbs, ready to face whatever this was, be it friend or foe. His heartbeat steadied, and a new determination took root. The glowing eyes blinked once, then withdrew slightly into the shadows, but they remained visible, an unspoken invitation or warning. Liam's muscles relaxed marginally, but he kept his stance alert, knowing this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The forest silence resumed, but now it felt charged, alive with possibilities. As he moved forward, a subtle shift occurred. The sense of loneliness was replaced by cautious hope. He had uncovered a fragment of the forest's secret, and perhaps, in time, this mysterious presence could become an ally, or reveal itself as a lurking threat. Either way, Liam understood that his journey into this unknown had truly begun. Liam paused at the edge of the clearing, his nose twitching as he detected the faint, layered scent lingering on the damp earth. The early sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting shifting shadows that flickered across the ground. He lowered his snout, pressing it close to the soil, and began to sniff deliberately, piecing together the story written in scent and disturbance. A sharp, smoky tang drifted on the breeze, subtle but unmistakable. It blended with the earthy aroma of soil and decayed leaves, creating a complex mosaic that hinted at recent activity far beyond mere footprints. Liam's ears flicked forward, attentive to every rustle, every whisper of movement in the forest. His heartbeat quickened, not from fear, but from a flickering curiosity that refused to be ignored. The footprints were fresh, impressions pressed deeply into the soft mud, uneven and hurried. Some had been dragged, the toes digging deeper indicating a frantic pace. Nearby, broken branches jutted at odd angles, their jagged ends torn from trees with evident force. The torn bark and scattered twigs painted a chaotic picture, suggesting something had passed through with urgency, perhaps fleeing or pursuing. Liam moved slowly around the scene, nose close to the ground, trying to reconstruct what had happened. He nudged a snapped branch aside with a paw, sniffed again, then tilted his head in thought. The scent grew stronger near a cluster of disturbed leaves and crushed grass, where multiple footprints converged. He hesitated, glancing toward the silent woods around him. The sunlight here seemed unnaturally bright, illuminating the trail with startling clarity. Every sense was heightened. The faint crackle of twigs under a distant breeze, the subtle shift of shadows, the distant murmur of bird calls. His mind raced, considering possibilities. Was it a human passing through? Someone who had been here earlier? Or was there someone still nearby, watching? Suddenly, a rustling among the bushes snapped him to alertness. His fur bristled instinctively, muscles tensing as he lowered himself closer to the earth. The sound was tentative, quick, like someone trying to hide their presence. For a moment, he considered retreating into the dense woods where shadows could conceal him, but an unyielding urge to understand pulled him forward. He crept silently, ears straining for any new sound. Each cautious step barely disturbed the ground beneath him, eyes darting between the trail and the surrounding trees. The scent of smoke grew stronger, mixing with something metallic, a hint of blood, or perhaps something else entirely. His senses sharpened as he advanced, alert for any sign of danger or opportunity. Ahead, a small clearing opened where the underbrush had been trampled flat. Liam paused behind a thick shrub, peering cautiously into the open space. Nothing moved, but the scent told him that someone or something had been here recently. His nose twitched at a faint, unfamiliar odor, an aroma that didn't belong to any animal he knew. It lingered, persistent, like a ghost of human presence. Unease prickled his spine. The forest was supposed to be a sanctuary, a refuge. Yet here, evidence of intrusion was undeniable. Someone had passed through hurriedly, leaving behind traces that could expose him if he got too close. Still, his curiosity pushed him to inch forward to gather more clues. A sudden snap of a twig behind him made Liam whirl around. His muscles tensed instantly, eyes narrowing as he turned toward the sound. For a moment, all he saw was the gentle sway of leaves in the breeze. Then, a shadow flickered at the edge of his vision, an abrupt movement too deliberate to be mere wind. His fur bristled again, and he pressed his body further into the undergrowth. His heartbeat steadied, but he refused to retreat. Instead, he focused on the trail once more, trying to decipher what had transpired. Whatever caused these signs was nearby, perhaps watching him, or perhaps oblivious to his presence. He took a slow, deliberate step closer to the disturbed area, nose pressed to the ground anew. The trail led toward a thicker patch of bushes, where broken branches thickened the cover. The scent of smoke was more pronounced here, mingled with a strange, sharp metallic odor, possibly blood, or something unfamiliar. A sudden gust of wind carried the scent directly into his nostrils, making him flinch. The forest seemed to hold its breath. His instincts screamed that danger lurked close, yet the allure of discovery pulled him onward. He needed to determine whether this was a fleeting traveler or something more sinister. As he pushed through a gap in the foliage, A flickering light appeared beyond the trees, irregular, uncertain. Maybe a campfire or a reflection from something metallic. His mind spun with questions. Was a human nearby? Had they seen him? Could he risk approaching? Or was this a trap? A low growl escaped his throat as hesitation took hold. Every fiber urged caution, but curiosity burned brighter. Moving slowly, Liam edged closer, alert for any sign of threat or opportunity. His senses sharpened with each step, every detail scrutinized. In that moment, he realized the trail was more than just signs of human passage. It signaled a shifting world, one where the boundary between the forest peace and intrusion was blurring. The environment was changing, and so was he. This discovery marked a turning point. He was no longer merely observing from the shadows, but actively seeking the truth behind the disturbance. The flickering glow grew more defined, casting uncertain light through the trees. Liam's stance grew more alert. His paws hesitated at the threshold of the unknown. He inhaled deeply, steadying himself for what lay ahead. His journey into the realm of human influence had begun, and with it, a new chapter of awareness. This time, Liam's perception had shifted. The forest's tranquility was fractured, and he understood that the quiet sanctuary he once relied on was no longer secure. His knowledge had deepened. Humans were closer, more reckless than he'd imagined. The signs he'd uncovered were just the beginning. Now, he had a clearer sense of the stakes and a decision to make, to confront or to retreat, knowing that every step forward could change everything. Liam paused at the edge of the small clearing, where the last rays of sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting a warm, amber glow over the scene. The scent of pine needles mingled with the faint aroma of freshly baked bread, drifting lazily on the evening breeze. Shadows stretched long and thin, flickering across the ground as the forest settled into quiet anticipation. His ears twitched at the faint rustle of leaves, yet he remained motionless, eyes fixed on the figure sitting beneath a twisted oak tree. A girl, small and delicate, with hair that caught the light like spun gold. She sat cross-legged, her face turned slightly away, eyes cast downward. She was silent, blending seamlessly into the tranquil background, but her presence felt strangely familiar. The gentle whisper of her voice, soft yet clear, reached him even before he saw her face. "Who's there?" she asked, her tone cautious but gentle, as if she already sensed his presence. The words drifted through the air, carrying a strange mixture of curiosity and wariness. Liam hesitated, ears twitching again, torn between the instinct to stay hidden and the pull to approach. He took a cautious step forward, claws sinking slightly into the soft earth. The girl's head lifted, revealing wide, expressive eyes that shimmered with innocence and a hint of wariness. Her gaze fixed on him, unwavering. Liam's body tensed, muscles coiling beneath his fur. A surge of conflicting emotions flooded him. Trust, suspicion, hope. The woods had taught him to be wary of strangers, yet something about her drew him in. Carefully, he moved closer, slow and deliberate, every step measured to avoid startling her. As he neared, she shifted slightly, curling her hands around her knees. Her lips parted as if to speak again, but she paused, studying him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Her scent was faint but inviting, notes of fresh bread, pine, and a subtle floral aroma that lingered in the air. It was soothing, and he found his muscles relaxing slightly, his suspicions softening. He stopped a few paces away, ears flicking forward. His nose twitched as he caught her gentle fragrance, and an inexplicable urge to trust her welled up inside him. Perhaps it was her calm demeanor or the softness in her eyes. Whatever the reason, it momentarily quieted the gnawing fear inside him. She broke the silence, her voice tender but steady. "You're far from the woods. What are you doing here?" Liam hesitated, searching for words. His throat felt dry, and instinct urged him to keep his distance. But then he realized that her calmness was not a threat. It was an invitation. Driven by a need to understand, he took a tentative step forward. I'm looking for something," he finally whispered, his voice rough but sincere. She tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "Most who come here are just passing through. But you seem different, not just a forest creature." He studied her face, trying to decipher her intentions. Her eyes held no suspicion, only quiet acceptance. Maybe she sensed something he himself was only beginning to understand, an unspoken kindness that beckoned him to trust. Without fully understanding why, Liam lowered his head slightly, a gesture of tentative trust. His fur brushed against the cool grass as he settled into a more relaxed posture. The girl responded by reaching into her bag, which rested against the trunk of the oak. She pulled out a small loaf of bread, wrapped in a cloth, and extended it toward him. "Eat," she said softly. "You look like you could use it." His nose twitched at the aroma. Hunger gnawed at him, sharper than before. Carefully, he stepped closer again, eyes fixed on the offering. His tongue flicked out, tasting the air, then gently taking the bread from her hand. The warmth of her palm lingered in his memory as he took a small bite, savoring the simple, comforting flavor. As they sat in silence, the only sounds were the rustling leaves and distant bird calls. Liam chewed slowly, feeling the tension in his muscles ebbing away. Her presence was calming, almost healing in its quiet steadiness. "Why are you here, Liam?" she asked, breaking the silence once more. Her tone was gentle but carried an underlying strength, a quiet confidence that made him hesitate before answering. He looked down at the crumbs in his paws, then back up. "I don't belong anywhere," he admitted softly. "I'm searching for a place where I can be myself, where I won't be chased or misunderstood." She nodded thoughtfully, her eyes flickering with understanding. "Sometimes the hardest thing is to find where you truly belong. But maybe you're already closer than you think." Her words resonated within him, stirring a flicker of hope long buried beneath years of distrust. Yet, beneath that hope, a cautious shadow remained. Trust was fragile, and he wondered if opening himself up further might lead to betrayal. Her kindness felt genuine, but what if it was a trap? He hesitated again, torn between his instincts and the fragile thread of trust forming in his chest. The sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows across the clearing, and the peaceful moment balanced on the edge of uncertainty. She reached out once more, gently brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Stay a little longer," she whispered. "There's no rush. Sometimes finding your place means listening to what the world has to say." Liam looked into her eyes, searching for answers he couldn't quite grasp. A strange warmth spread through his chest as he considered her words. For the first time since losing his pack, he felt a faint glimmer of hope, that perhaps he had found someone willing to see him, not as a creature to fear, but as a being in need of kindness. The sky darkened further, stars beginning to twinkle faintly overhead. Liam settled onto his belly, close enough to feel her presence, his muscles relaxing more fully. The path ahead remained uncertain, but in that quiet evening glow, a new understanding took root. He realized that trust, once fragile, could be nurtured through patience and genuine connection. He had come seeking something, belonging, acceptance, a place to call home. Now, he understood that sometimes the first step was simply to listen, and perhaps in this moment, he had begun to do just that. Liam crouched behind a low bush, his body tense as he observed the figure working steadily in the distant field. The midday sun cast sharp shadows along the rows of crops, and a gentle breeze caused the plants to ripple softly, their scent mingling with the earth's rich aroma. Freshly turned soil, ripening vegetables and herbs. The familiar, grounding smells soothed his racing mind, but he kept his muscles alert, ears tuned to every sound. The man was tall and broad-shouldered, his face weathered from years of labor, bearing the marks of countless seasons. His hands moved with practiced grace, tending the plants with a gentle yet deliberate touch. Liam's gaze lingered on the beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, noticing the kindness in his eyes despite the rugged exterior. The man paused, brushing a stray strand of hair from his brow, then stooped to pull a stubborn weed. Liam's muscles tensed further, instincts urging him to remain hidden. He crept closer, careful to avoid making any noise. Every step was calculated, senses heightened. The scent of earth and greenery grew stronger, mingling with the faint aroma of carrots, lettuce, and herbs, almost beckoning him forward. He wondered if the man might sense his presence, but the worker was too absorbed in his task to notice the silent observer lurking nearby. A sudden rustling in the tall corn startled Liam. His body froze instinctively, muscles tightening as he turned his head slightly, ears pricked. A small bird fluttered out from the crop, wings whispering as it soared into the sky. Liam exhaled slowly, relief flooding through him. The tension eased, and he pressed on, inching closer to the edge of the field, mindful not to disturb the scene. From his hiding spot, Liam watched as the man paused, wiping his hands on a cloth and gazing across the vast stretches of greenery. His gaze seemed to catch the faint hum of activity from the village beyond, distant yet persistent. Liam's heartbeat quickened, every detail amplified. The distant call of a worker, the faint clatter of tools. Suddenly, the man's eyes flicked toward the horizon, as if sensing something. For a moment, their eyes might have met, if only Liam dared step into the open. Then a sharp shout echoed from the village, a warning, perhaps, or a call for help. The man straightened, alert now, scanning the surroundings with sharper focus. Liam instinctively ducked behind a thicker patch of bushes, pressing his body flat against the ground. His breath caught, and he watched as the man's expression hardened, sensing trouble. After a tense pause, the man resumed his work, more cautious but composed. He reached for a basket, filling it with freshly picked vegetables, then started walking along the narrow dirt path that led toward the village. Liam remained hidden, heart pounding with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Despite the alertness in the man's posture, there was no hostility, only a quiet resolve, a different kind of strength. Liam's mind whirled with questions. Could this man be different from the others? Might he be trustworthy? The possibility flickered, hope fragile but real. As the man's figure disappeared behind a cluster of trees, Liam hesitated, torn between the urge to follow and the instinct to retreat. Then a faint but unmistakable aroma drifted toward him. Fresh bread, roasted herbs, the scent weaving through the air. His stomach clenched at the hunger that gnawed at him, reminding him of his own vulnerability. The scent seemed to beckon him, promising sustenance or perhaps a sign of life beyond his fears. His instincts urged caution, but hope pushed him forward. Slowly, Liam stepped onto the edge of the path, every movement deliberate. His ears swiveled, catching distant sounds, murmurs of activity, the faint clatter of footsteps. He paused where the trees thinned, peering out at the village beyond. The buildings looked inviting, with smoke curling from chimneys and children's laughter echoing faintly in the background. The scene was peaceful, yet the unknown kept him wary. He hesitated again, weighing risks against curiosity. His instincts warned him to stay hidden, to observe longer, to gather more information. But his desire to understand, to find safety, grew stronger. Could he risk revealing himself? Would they see him as a creature of danger or as a potential ally? The moment hung suspended, thick with anticipation. A gust of wind carried the scent of the fields, fresh, earthy, promising renewal. Liam inhaled deeply, feeling a flicker of connection to the land and a faint hope that not all humans were enemies. Perhaps some could be gentle, even kind. If he was brave enough, maybe he could find refuge among them, cautious but open. He took a tentative step onto the path, eyes fixed on the distant figure walking away. Every nerve was alert, yet a strange calm settled within him. For the first time, he considered that his journey might lead to a place where worlds could meet, not as enemies, but as neighbors, if only he dared to approach. As the village drew nearer in his view, Liam's mind raced with questions and new possibilities. Would they accept him? Could he find a place where his true nature was understood? The answers remained hidden, but one thing was clear. His choices from this moment could alter everything. The landscape of trust and fear was shifting, and Liam knew he had to decide whether to step into the unknown or retreat into the shadows once more. Liam pressed himself deeper into the dense foliage, muscles tense as he watched the clearing. The fading light cast long shadows across the forest floor, and the cool evening air carried a faint metallic tang that prickled his nose, remnants of recent human activity. His ears twitched at every rustle, every faint snap of twigs, alert to the slightest sign of danger. From his concealed spot, Liam observed a figure moving carefully through the underbrush. It was Elena, the forest ranger. Her movements were deliberate and quiet, almost as if she was trying not to disturb the woods. She carried a bundle of twigs and a small pouch, her face set with focused determination. His gaze followed her, curiosity mingled with wariness. Unlike others he'd encountered, she moved with a gentle grace, her expression soft yet alert. But beneath her calm exterior, a sense of threat lingered, an awareness that danger was nearby. Elena's steps slowed as she approached a small clearing. She paused, kneeling to examine the earth and scattered leaves, her gloved fingers delicately tracing the ground. Liam's eyes caught a glint beneath some brush, a thin, almost invisible wire, blending seamlessly with the shadows. His heart quickened. He pressed closer, ears flattening as he strained to catch her subtle movements. The faint smell of oil and cold metal filled the air. Elena's gloved hands carefully adjusted a small, cleverly concealed snare. Her brow furrowed, lips tightening as she inspected the trap, then moved on to another spot. Liam's stomach clenched. He recognized the signs immediately. These were traps, devices designed to ensnare animals, but also tools used by humans for hunting or poaching. The realization hit him with a weight that pressed against his chest, fueling his growing anxiety. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke the silence. Liam froze, muscles stiffening. His eyes darted toward the undergrowth as a small bird startled into flight, wings fluttering frantically. The noise was brief, but loud enough to draw Elena's attention. Her head snapped up, her gaze sharpening as she listened intently. She moved silently, approaching the source of the disturbance with cautious purpose. Liam's body tensed further. The danger was immediate now. The presence of traps indicated recent human patrols, possibly hunters or poachers. But it was Elena's calm, deliberate movements that sparked a fragile hope. Not all humans were enemies. Some, like her, seemed to act as guardians of the forest, fighting to protect what remained of the wilderness from destructive hands. He hesitated, torn between the instinct to remain hidden and the impulse to reveal himself. Approaching could alert her to his presence, but it might also allow him to warn her about the traps and the lurking threat. His mind raced with the consequences. Innocent animals could be caught in these cruel devices, and Elena's safety was at stake. Yet, revealing himself could also put her in danger. What if she perceived him as a threat, a creature to be hunted? A twig beneath his paw snapped loudly, echoing through the quiet woods. Elena's head whipped toward the sound instantly. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows with a trained, piercing gaze. For a moment, Liam thought she might see him, but her focus shifted past him toward the rustling in the bushes. He held his breath, muscles taut, trying not to betray his position. The seconds stretched painfully long, each heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then Elena lowered herself cautiously, resuming her inspection of the traps. Her vigilance betrayed her concern, yet she moved with a calculated calm, trying not to spook whatever was nearby. Liam watched her with a mixture of admiration and caution. Her every movement was precise, her awareness of the environment evident. She understood the silent language of the woods, and perhaps she sensed the presence of the creatures hiding in the shadows. That realization sparked a flicker of trust. If she was attentive enough to avoid danger herself, maybe she could be trusted. Slowly, Liam inched forward, weighing his options. Staying hidden kept him safe, but left the danger unaddressed. Approaching her might allow him to communicate the threat, to warn her about the traps and the humans who had recently passed through. But how? Would she see him as a friend or a foe? He moved carefully, ears alert for any sound that could betray him. His fur bristled at every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves, every sense heightened. Shadows cloaked his form as he crept closer until he was close enough to be seen. Then, with a tentative step, he emerged into the open, eyes searching Elena's face for recognition or suspicion. She froze when she saw him. An animal, yet somehow different. Her eyes widened slightly, but she did not recoil. Instead, she lowered her gaze and reached into her pocket, pulling out a small piece of dried fruit. With gentle, deliberate movements, she extended her hand toward Liam, offering the treat as a silent gesture of peace. Liam hesitated, instinct battling trust. His muscles relaxed just enough to sniff the offering, then he cautiously stepped forward. The sweet scent was unfamiliar but inviting. He took the fruit, feeling warmth spread through him. He looked up at her again, sensing her genuine intent. In that quiet moment, a fragile understanding blossomed. Elena was not merely a human with tools and traps. She was a protector of the forest, a guardian of life. Liam realized that not all humans were enemies. Some could be allies, even if their worlds remained separate. As the shadows lengthened and the evening deepened, Liam stayed near her, the immediate danger momentarily subdued. Yet beneath this fragile calm, a new awareness took root. He understood that the forest's safety depended not only on instinct or strength, but also on trust, empathy, and the courage to look beyond fear. In this twilight of uncertainty, a small but vital step toward understanding had been made, altering his perception of both humans and himself. Liam's nostrils flared as the damp morning air filled with the subtle scent of moist earth and moss. The first rays of dawn pierced the thick canopy, casting shifting shadows across the leaf-strewn floor. He paused, ears twitching, sensing something off, an unnatural disturbance. His nose twitched again, catching a faint, hurried trail, human scent, fresh and unmistakable. His instincts sharpened. Danger lurked nearby. He slipped behind a cluster of ferns, muscles tense, eyes narrowing as he scanned the clearing ahead. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant drip of water and the whisper of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. Liam's body instinctively coiled, every sense alert. He had learned to read his nose well. Now it warned him of imminent threat, something unpredictable and potentially deadly. Slowly, he moved closer, paused silent on the soft earth, each step deliberate. His gaze fixated on a disturbed patch of soil near the clearing's edge, fresh, recent. The scent trail led toward a narrow gap between two trees. Liam followed it cautiously, nose to the ground, senses heightened. Each step was measured, deliberate, as if treading on fragile glass. The trail was warm, almost still carrying residual heat, and confirmed recent passage. Liam paused, ears pricked forward at a faint crack in the bushes nearby. His body froze, muscles taut, eyes narrowing. The sound of a twig snapping underfoot confirmed his suspicion. Someone was close. His heart quickened, but he fought the urge to bolt. Instead, he crept toward the noise, ducking behind a fallen log for cover. His eyes caught a fleeting shadow darting among the trees, a sign of movement. He tensed further, muscles coiled, ready to react. Suddenly, a rustling burst from the underbrush, loud enough to startle him. Hackles raised instinctively. Liam prepared to defend himself. But instead of a predator or human, a small bird erupted from the bushes, flapping wildly into the sky. Liam exhaled slowly, muscles relaxing, the immediate threat dissipating. Yet, his vigilance remained razor-sharp. A faint, unfamiliar scent drifted to him, human mixed with something else. Not threatening, but out of place. He sniffed again, trying to decipher whether it was friend or foe. The aroma carried hints of wood smoke, processed fabric, and something metallic. He hesitated, ears flicking toward the trail, listening intently, for any further signs. His instincts urged action. The forest, peaceful yet unpredictable, demanded caution. Humans could mean conflict or cooperation if approached wisely. Liam stepped out from his hiding spot, moving carefully toward the trail, every muscle tense. Ahead, he spotted a faint footprint pressed into the soft soil, small but unmistakably human. He sniffed again, confirming the trail's freshness. It led toward a small clearing, where he remembered Elena, the forest ranger, had been earlier. His gaze flicked to the diverging path beyond the footprints, pondering his next move. He pressed forward, staying low, the scent growing stronger as he neared a clearing bathed in dawn's pale glow. Shadows danced between the trees, and the air hummed with life. Liam's senses prickled with anticipation, unsure whether hostility or kindness awaited. Then movement caught his eye, human figures distant but recognizable. One tall, moving with purpose, another shorter, crouched near the ground. Liam tensed again, instinct urging retreat. But then he noticed a flicker of concern in the tall figure's posture, cautious, aware of unseen eyes. His gaze fixed on Elena, who was inspecting the ground, her face composed but attentive. Her movements were careful, deliberate, her hands adjusting a trap partially hidden among roots. She was alert, aware of her surroundings. Liam watched her, mind racing with conflicting thoughts. Could she be trusted? Was she friend or foe? A sudden breeze carried her scent closer. Liam's nose twitched again, sensing curiosity and vigilance, but no immediate threat. He took a slow step forward, just enough to be noticed without alarming her. His eyes met hers across the distance, bright, wary, searching. Elena's eyes widened slightly at the sight of him, but she didn't retreat. Instead, she paused, studying him carefully. Liam flicked his tail once, a tentative gesture of recognition. Silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions. Then he barked, a sharp, urgent call that sliced through the morning calm. It was a warning, an alert. His ears pressed back, eyes fixed on her, hoping she understood the message. Elena's brow furrowed, but her expression softened as she grasped his intent. She lowered herself slowly, extending a cautious hand toward him, voice calm and steady. "Hey there, I see you," she whispered gently. "You're trying to tell me something." Liam hesitated, eyes flickering between her face and the trail he'd followed. He barked again, more insistently, then tilted his head toward the direction of the recent disturbance. His body language conveyed urgency. Something was wrong, and he needed her to understand. She nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Good boy," she murmured, voice reassuring. Her hand moved closer, palm open, inviting trust. Liam sniffed her hand cautiously, then nudged it with his nose, a small gesture, but one that signified tentative alliance. Suddenly, a distant growl echoed from deeper within the woods. Both froze, eyes locking once more. Liam twitched, sans signe imminent danger. Elena's face grew serious, her gaze darting toward the sound's origin. He barked again, a warning and a plea. Elena responded instantly, racing swiftly. "We need to move," she said softly, voice tense but controlled. "Stay close. We're not alone." Liam's tail lowered, but he remained alert, ready to follow her lead. Together, they turned toward the deeper woods, their partnership fragile but real. The threat was still out there, lurking beyond sight, but for now, they had a shared purpose. As they advanced, Liam felt a cautious hope stirring within him. Perhaps this moment marked the beginning of understanding, a fragile bridge between worlds. The forest's dangers remained, but so did the possibility of coexistence, if only they could navigate the shadows together. Liam's senses sharpened as he pressed himself into the shadows of the tall grass, the dust swirling softly around his paws. The midday sun cast stark light over the outskirts of the village, illuminating the uneven dirt and scattered stones. Distant voices drifted through the air, muffled but tense, punctuated by the metallic clang of tools and machinery being hurriedly assembled. Every sound seemed magnified, fueling the growing unease in his chest. He had tracked the faint scent trail from the forest's edge, earth, sweat, and unfamiliar chemical odors guiding him through the underbrush. Now, concealed behind a fallen log, he watched as a group of men moved with purpose, their figures hunched over makeshift workbenches. Their clothing was dusty, torn in places, faces obscured by hats or shadows cast by the bright sun. They worked hurriedly, as if racing against an unseen deadline, hiding something secretive. From his vantage point, Liam observed a cluster of rough tables cluttered with equipment, metal poles, tangled wires, and small, humming generators. The men's voices, sharp and clipped, carried faintly in the air, speaking in hurried, hushed bursts Liam couldn't quite decipher. Still, the tone was unmistakably tense, alert, suspicious, with an undercurrent of nervousness. Their movements betrayed a sense of urgency, as if they feared being caught. He shifted slightly, ears twitching at every rustle of fabric, every scrape of metal. His eyes darted from one figure to another, noting the practiced precision of their hand movements. One man, taller and broader than the rest, barked an order, then pointed sharply toward the woods. The others responded with quick nods, adjusting their positions, preparing for something imminent. A flicker of dread crept through Liam. The pieces clicked into place. The hurried setup, the guarded demeanor, the way their eyes darted around as if expecting trouble. This wasn't routine activity. It felt clandestine, dangerous. His fur bristled at the thought. What if they were planning something harmful? The idea made his stomach tighten. He pressed closer, low and cautious, trying to remain unseen. His paws barely disturbed the ground, but a snapped twig or a rustling leaf could betray his presence. He froze, muscles tense, as one of the men paused and looked around, alert. The wind shifted, carrying a faint scent of smoke and oil, sharpening the suspicion gnawing at him. Suddenly, a distant shout shattered the quiet, a sharp, commanding cry. Liam's heartbeat quickened. He saw a man wave his arm, signaling to the others. They responded swiftly, finishing their adjustments with hurried efficiency. The metallic clang of secured equipment echoed again, and a low hum of generators grew louder, hinting at something about to start. Liam's mind spun with possibilities. This was no ordinary gathering of workers or hunters. It was a coordinated operation, possibly illegal, potentially destructive. The urgency in their actions suggested they were racing to complete their task before anyone discovered them. His claws dug into the dirt as he watched, aware that he had to decide quickly. A gust of wind swept dust into his nose, making him cough silently. He peered around the log, narrowing his eyes. The group was now fully engaged, their focus solely on their work. He spotted a few more figures approaching from the opposite side of the clearing, carrying additional supplies. Whatever their plan was, it was unfolding fast, and time was slipping away. His thoughts returned to Elena's warnings about outsiders lurking near the forest, those who could exploit or damage the land. This wasn't just a casual gathering. It was an intrusion, a breach that could threaten everything he held dear. His stomach clenched with the realization that he couldn't delay. He had to act. He shifted slightly, weighing his options. Should he retreat and alert someone, risking the operation's success? Or should he attempt to intervene directly, risking exposure? Memories of Marcus's reports flashed through his mind. Strange activity, strangers behaving suspiciously. This was the moment their warnings had prepared him for. His gaze fixed on the scene before him, a heavy sense of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Every second counted. The men's voices grew louder, discussing final adjustments, their words sharp and hurried. The faint whir of machinery added an ominous undertone to the scene. He inhaled deeply, muscles coiling with readiness. He couldn't allow this operation to succeed, whether it was illegal logging, poaching, or some other destructive scheme, threatened the fragile balance of his world. Quietly, he prepared to move, to find a way to stop them. Then, a sudden movement caught his eye. One of the men glanced toward the woods, suspicion flickering across his face. Liam froze again, heartbeat pounding. The man's gaze lingered, as if sensing something amiss, but then he shook his head and resumed his work. The moment of doubt passed swiftly, but Liam felt the tension spike. His mind sharpened into focus. He had to act now decisively. The threat was immediate and real. With a quick, almost imperceptible nod to himself, he decided to stay hidden a little longer, gather more information, and wait for the right moment to intervene. Hesitation now could mean disaster. As activity intensified and shadows lengthened, Liam's awareness deepened. The danger was no longer distant or abstract. It pressed close, demanding his attention. His small frame trembled with resolve, knowing his choice could alter everything. The forest's quiet resilience depended on his action. He watched silently, muscles taut, feeling the weight of the approaching storm. The line between safety and catastrophe blurred with each passing second. Deep inside, he understood that this was the moment that could define his role, protector or passive witness to devastation. He remained still, alert to every sound, every movement. The scene before him was more than just a clandestine gathering. It was a threat to his home. His awareness sharpened, and with it, the realization that he couldn't afford to wait much longer. The stakes had never been higher. Finally, one of the men looked again toward the woods, suspicion flickering across his face. Liam froze, heart pounding. The man's gaze lingered, as if sensing something unseen, but then he shook his head and turned back to his work. The moment of doubt was brief, but the tension in Liam's chest remained. He took a slow, deliberate breath. He knew what he had to do. The operation's success or failure depended on his next move. He could no longer afford to be a passive observer. The threat was too immediate, the stakes too high. He prepared himself to act, to disrupt the clandestine activity before it could escalate further. His mind focused sharply. This was no longer about gathering intel. It was about preventing catastrophe. His resolve hardened as he realized that waiting any longer could mean losing everything he fought to protect. As the men's voices grew more frantic, Final adjustments being made, Liam's decision crystallized. He would step out of the shadows, confront the danger directly, and do whatever it took to stop them. The future of his home depended on it. The shadows lengthened around him, but his focus remained unwavering. The storm was coming. He could feel it, and he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Liam's eyes flicked nervously across the shadowed forest, the pale glow of the moon casting shifting silvery patterns over gnarled branches and damp leaves. The cool night air prickled against his fur, carrying the faint, desperate cry that sliced through the silence like a jagged shard of glass. His muscles tensed instinctively. He knew he couldn't ignore that sound. Without hesitation, he moved toward it, navigating the uneven ground with deliberate, cautious steps. Every movement was measured, driven by a mixture of concern and a primal urge to act. The distant whimper grew louder, resonating with pain and fear, urging him onward. As he pressed deeper into the woods, a sudden gust of wind stirred the scent of moist earth and something sharper, metal and rust. Liam's nose twitched sharply, sharpening his focus. He slowed, ears swiveling as he approached a small clearing bathed in faint moonlight. There he saw it, a fox, trembling violently, caught in a cruel metal trap that clamped tightly around its slender leg. The fox's fur was matted with dirt and streaked with blood, its body writhing helplessly as it struggled to free itself. Its tiny snout emitted muffled growls of frustration and terror. Liam's stomach clenched, his instinct to hunt warred with a growing sense of compassion. He hesitated, knowing that revealing himself now could mean danger, yet unable to ignore the suffering before him. He crept closer, careful to avoid snapping branches or rustling leaves that might alert the fox or betray his presence. His paws barely disturbed the soft earth as he examined the trap. The metal was old, rusted but still sharp, its jaws clamped with unforgiving force. The fox's leg was swollen, trembling with each labored breath. Liam's mind raced. How to free the creature without causing further injury? He knew he had to act, but caution was paramount. Suddenly, the fox emitted a piercing yelp, the pain overwhelming its restraint. Its body jerked violently, claws scrabbling at the ground in frantic desperation. Liam's breath hitched. He couldn't stand by and watch it suffer. Moving slowly, he lowered himself to the ground, eyes fixed on the trap, trying to gauge its mechanism. A faint rustling noise from the shadows made him freeze, ears twitching, heart pounding. Was it a predator? Or just the forest's restless whispering? Liam exhaled slowly, steadying himself. His paws probed the cold metal, feeling for a weak point or latch he could manipulate. The trap was stubborn, aged and corroded, but not entirely impenetrable. He needed a plan. His gaze shifted to the fox's trembling leg. It was swollen, the pain evident in every strained breath. Liam's mind spun with options. Should he attempt to pry the trap open or try to bend metal? The risk was high. A wrong move could worsen the injury. As he hesitated, the fox let out another yelp, louder and more desperate, its body twisting in a frantic attempt to escape. The sound jolted Liam into action. His heart hammered with urgency, not just from the risk of injury, but from a deeper sense of responsibility. He knew he couldn't leave it like this. Gently, he shifted closer, lowering his body carefully. His teeth clenched in determination as he bit into the metal latch. aiming to bend or break it free. The cold steel bit into his gums, but he persisted, applying pressure with measured strength. The trap resisted, tightening slightly as he pushed against it. His claws scraped against the rusted surface, searching for an opening. Minutes felt like hours, sweat beading along his fur and paws as he worked tirelessly. The fox's trembling slowed, exhaustion pressing in, but its eyes flickered with a fragile hope, an unspoken plea for mercy. Finally, with a sharp crack, the latch snapped. The jaws of the trap loosened, releasing the fox's injured leg. The animal shot him a quick, grateful glance before stumbling away, limping but free. Liam watched as it disappeared into the shadows, relief flooding through him. Yet, beneath that, a lingering ache gnawed at his conscience. Knowing the fox would need time and care to recover fully, he remained rooted, listening to the rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl. The forest seemed to breathe easier now, the night no longer echoing with cries of suffering. For a moment, Liam allowed himself a quiet sense of accomplishment. He had done what he could. But as he prepared to slip back into the darkness, a faint sound caught his attention. Soft footsteps approaching. His ears sharpened instinctively. He pressed himself against the trunk of a nearby tree, eyes darting through the shadows. Emerging from the gloom was Elena, the forest ranger, her face faintly illuminated by the moonlight. She moved with purpose, holding a small torch, her gaze sweeping the area with practiced calm. Liam's pulse quickened. He watched her kneel beside the fox, her expression gentle yet alert. She examined the injured limb carefully, then looked around, sensing something amiss. Their eyes met briefly, hers filled with curiosity, perhaps a flicker of recognition. Liam froze, unsure of her thoughts, but feeling a strange, cautious hope stirring within him. Maybe her presence was a sign that his act of compassion had not gone unnoticed. Elena straightened, then turned away, moving toward the edge of the clearing. Liam hesitated only a moment before slipping into the shadows once more, the image of the freed fox lingering in his mind. The night stretched on, silent except for the whispering wind and distant calls of nocturnal creatures. A new resolve took root in him, one born from a small act of kindness, risking exposure to forge a fragile link between the worlds he longed to reconcile. As he melted into the darkness, he realized that his actions had shifted something unseen, perhaps opening a door to understanding, or at least planting a seed of trust. For the first time in a long while, Liam felt a faint glimmer of hope that even in the shadows, compassion could spark change. Liam's paws barely disturbed the damp earth as he pressed himself against a tangled thicket at the forest's edge. Shadows stretched long and jagged across the undergrowth, cloaking the narrow opening where he had tracked the faint scent trail. The air grew thick with anticipation, carrying the metallic tang of recent human activity, an unmistakable sign that danger was near. His chest rose and fell silently, every muscle taut, ears sharply tuned for the slightest sound. The distant rustle of leaves and the muffled crack of a twig underfoot heightened his awareness. Someone was nearby, and they weren't alone. A sudden, sharp rustling behind him made his fur bristle. He spun instinctively, claws scraping against the soil, tail flicking with nervous energy. The noise had come from deeper within the woods, yet it sounded unnervingly close. His instincts screamed to run, but curiosity rooted him to the spot. The scent of fresh human disturbance lingered in the air, an unmistakable sign that a threat was actively stalking these woods. From his concealed position, Liam watched as a figure moved cautiously through the underbrush. It was Elena, the forest ranger. Her movements were measured and silent, her gaze fixed downward as she examined the ground. She paused, kneeling to inspect a crude snare hidden beneath a layer of fallen leaves, her fingers deftly adjusting the wire with practiced ease. Her presence was a stark contrast to the tense silence that clung to the woods. Calm, purposeful, almost gentle. Yet, Liam knew better than to underestimate her resolve. Her calm was a mask for sharp determination. He inched forward, pressing his body against the rough bark of a tree, trying to stay hidden. His eyes flicked between her and the shadows, attempting to interpret her intentions. Elena's gaze flicked upward, scanning the canopy with alert eyes. Liam held his breath, frozen as she continued her meticulous inspection. A faint gust of wind carried a faint metallic scent, freshly disturbed metal, unmistakably from poaching traps. His stomach clenched. The threat had shifted from distant rumor to immediate danger. The poachers were closer than ever, their presence confirmed by the scent and the signs Elena was uncovering. Liam remembered stories of how these hunters roamed these woods, disregarding the delicate balance of life here, hunting for rare creatures and ignoring the forest's silent warnings. If they found him, or worse, the other animals, destruction would be inevitable. Elena's hand brushed against a small, crude trap, her fingers lingering briefly before she straightened. She looked around once more, her eyes narrowing as she moved deeper into the thicket. Her steps were deliberate, every movement calculated to avoid alerting anyone nearby. She had identified the snares. Her mission now was to disable them without alarming the poachers. Liam watched her, admiration flickering beneath his cautious exterior. She wasn't just patrolling. She was fighting to protect this fragile sanctuary. Suddenly, a distant crack shattered the silence, sharper and more deliberate. Liam's ears flattened instinctively. The sound echoed through the trees like a gunshot, but it was a branch breaking under weight. His heart pounded harder. Then came another noise, a metallic scrape, like a tool sliding against metal, unmistakably the sound of approaching machinery or weapons. The poachers were closing in. His mind raced. Staying hidden any longer risked detection. The danger was imminent, and he had to act. But retreat wasn't an option. He needed to warn Elena without revealing his position. His gaze darted around, searching for a way to alert her discreetly. A rustling in the bushes to his left drew his attention. Elena stiffened, her hand instinctively reaching toward her belt where she kept a radio. Liam's instincts urged him forward, but hesitation rooted him. Instead, he decided to create a distraction. He snapped a sturdy branch, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the silent woods. Elena spun toward the noise, her eyes narrowing sharply. Her grip tightened on her radio. Liam seized the opportunity. He darted out from his hiding place, low growl rumbling from his throat, claws skimming the ground as he moved toward her. His voice was strained with urgency. Elena, poachers, coming. Recognition flashed in her eyes. She quickly raised her radio, voice sharp and commanding. Movement detected. Possible threat. Approaching from the north. Send backup immediately. Liam's chest heaved as he reached her side. his eyes darting nervously toward the shadows. The faint hum of engines grew louder, muffled by the trees, but unmistakable. Elena's face was set with fierce determination. She knew they couldn't wait. Time was running out. Every second counted. Behind her, Liam spotted Marcus, a fellow protector, emerging from a concealed spot. The wolf hurried over, carrying a bundle of twigs and branches. Without hesitation, Marcus began weaving a makeshift barrier, aiming to slow the advancing poachers. Their plan was desperate: buy enough time for rescue and escape, not to defeat the intruders outright. Liam watched as Elena moved to a fallen log, pulling out a small device, an emergency flare. She ignited it, the fiery glow slicing through the twilight, casting flickering shadows across their tense faces. The bright light momentarily blinded the approaching figures, their silhouettes flickering just beyond the trees. The flare's crackling sound added to the chaos, echoing through the woods. The sound of breaking underbrush grew louder as the poachers drew nearer. The trap Marcus was assembling was nearly complete, but time was slipping away. Liam felt a surge of resolve. They couldn't let these men destroy what remained of the forest or threaten the fragile lives within it. His instincts, both wolf and human, aligned in a singular purpose: to defend this sanctuary at all costs. A series of hurried footsteps approached, the noise rising above the ambient sounds. Elena's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold your ground. They're close. We must keep them at bay until backup arrives." Liam inhaled deeply, his gaze narrowing. The confrontation was unavoidable now. As shadows thickened and the first figures burst into view, he understood that this moment would define his understanding of trust, bravery, and sacrifice. The stakes had escalated dramatically. The outcome depended on their unity, standing firm against the threat, against fear, and against losing everything they fought to preserve. By the time the poachers reached the clearing, Liam's senses sharpened. His body tensed, ready to defend, knowing that this confrontation would change everything, both for himself and for the forest he loved. The fragile balance of life was teetering on the edge, and only their combined resolve could tip the scales towards safety. Liam's paws pressed silently against the damp earth as shadows stretched long across the clearing, the last glow of dusk slipping into darkness. The air was thick with stillness, broken only by the faint drip of blood pooling on the cold ground. A metallic scent lingered, sharp and unsettling, mingling with the earthy aroma of the forest floor. He paused, ears twitching, eyes narrowing as they fixed on the wounded figure slumped against a fallen log. The man's face was twisted in pain, one arm pressed tightly against his side where crimson seeped through torn fabric. His clothes were muddy and ragged, dirt streaked across his cheeks, yet his gaze remained sharp, defiant even in agony. Blood smeared across his hands, trembling as he struggled to stem the bleeding. The tension in the air was palpable. Unspoken questions hung heavy, wounds unhealed, and the silence seemed to weigh on him. Liam hesitated, instinct fighting with conscience, the urge to flee, to hide, or to attack if threatened warred within him. But curiosity and a flicker of compassion rooted him to the spot. Carefully, he stepped forward, paws whispering over the leaf-strewn ground, eyes fixed on the injured man. The man's eyes flicked up, pupils dilated with shock and fear. His lips parted slightly, Words caught in his throat, but no sound escaped. Instead, he managed a hoarse whisper, voice raw and strained. "You shouldn't be here." Liam's ears flattened briefly. His instincts told him to keep his distance, to remain alert, but the vulnerability in the man's expression made him pause. Not hostility, but exhaustion, desperation. Shadows from the trees played tricks, making the man seem more fragile than he appeared. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," the man rasped, trembling. "It was the only way. They would have killed me otherwise." The words stirred conflicting feelings: anger at those who had caused this, sympathy for the suffering stranger. Liam's mind raced back to previous encounters with humans, some cruel, some kind. Was this man truly a villain, or just desperate and lost? He stepped closer, cautious but not afraid. The man's eyes darted nervously, tracking Liam's movements. "Stay back," he warned, voice cracking. Liam halted, ears perked. "What happened? Why are you here?" The man closed his eyes briefly, grimacing as he shifted slightly, trying to find a less painful position. "Poachers. They came at dawn, set traps all through the forest. I tried to warn others, but I got caught. The trap was too strong. I was lucky. Others weren't so fortunate." A heavy silence settled over them, broken only by the irregular rhythm of the man's labored breathing. Liam's mind flashed with images: hidden traps beneath leaves, the snap of steel, helpless animals caught in cruel devices. The stories he'd heard, the warnings he'd ignored, suddenly felt more immediate. He took a tentative step closer, sniffing the air to verify the truth. The scent of sweat, fear, and blood mingled. The man's face twisted in pain, eyes pleading silently. "Why did you come here?" Liam asked softly, voice barely above a whisper. "What do you want?" The man looked at him, a flicker of something unreadable passing across his face. Regret, shame, maybe hope. "I was desperate," he admitted. "Thought I could hide, maybe find help. But now, I see it's pointless. I can't move without bleeding out." Liam hesitated, feeling the weight of moral uncertainty pressing down. His instincts urged him to retreat, to stay hidden, but the man's vulnerability, the shared pain, made him pause. Could this human be saved, or was he beyond help? Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush made both tense. Liam's muscles coiled instinctively, eyes darting toward the noise. The man's breath hitched, blood staining his fingers as he clutched his side tighter. From the shadows emerged a figure, Elena, the forest ranger, moving cautiously, her expression tense but composed. Her eyes immediately fixed on the injured man, then on Liam. "Is that him?" Elena asked softly, concern evident. The man nodded weakly. "Help me, please." Elena knelt, quickly assessing the wound. Her hands moved with practiced ease, pulling a cloth from her pack and pressing it gently against the bleeding. Her gaze flicked between Liam and the injured man, seeking understanding. "This situation is complicated," she said softly. "He's hurt badly, but he's also a human. We can't just leave him here." Liam's ears twitched at her words. The complexity of the moral dilemma was suddenly undeniable. He looked at the bloodied face, then at Elena, weighing the consequences of their choices. The man's eyes flickered with gratitude, but also with fear. "They won't stop," he whispered. "More poachers. If I don't get help, I might not survive the night." Liam stepped closer again, nose to the air, considering his options. His instincts screamed to withdraw, to hide away. But the man's fragile state and shared suffering made him hesitate. The forest grew darker as night approached, a cold wind stirring the leaves, carrying a sense of foreboding. Liam's gaze shifted between the injured human and Elena, a silent question forming. What should be done? Could forgiveness be possible, even here, amid bloodshed and broken trust? He inhaled deeply, feeling a pang in his chest. The instinct to judge or protect clashed with a fragile hope for understanding. Elena finished tending to the wound and looked up at Liam, her expression serious. We need to move him somewhere safer. The poachers won't be far, and if they find him. The injured man's voice broke in, weak but determined. Don't tell them anything. Just get me out of here. Please. Liam's gaze hardened, but beneath it all, uncertainty churned. He knew the forest laws. Some wounds could be mended, others might be beyond repair. His internal conflict deepened. Trust, suspicion, mercy, instinct. In that moment, a quiet understanding settled between them. The forest, with its shadows and secrets, was no longer just a refuge or threat. It had become a realm of moral shades, where choices carried weight beyond simple labels. As Elena prepared to move the man, Liam's internal battle reached a new peak. He was no longer just a curious observer, but a participant in a fragile dance of morality and mercy, where every decision could lead to salvation or ruin. The shadows lengthened further, darkness creeping in as the night deepened. The wind's whisper carried a sense of impending change. Liam's gaze lingered on the injured man and Elena, pondering the path ahead. Trust, betrayal, or perhaps a chance for redemption. He took a slow breath, the ache in his chest reminding him of the weight of his choices. The instinct to judge or flee clashed with a flickering hope that understanding and mercy could still find a place here. When Elena finished her careful work and looked up, her voice was steady. We need to move now. The poachers are close, and we can't afford any delays. The injured man, gathering his remaining strength, nodded faintly. Just get me out of here. Liam stepped forward, his decision clear. He would not abandon this stranger. Not yet. The forest laws had shifted. This was no longer a simple matter of predator and prey. It was about compassion, trust, and the possibility of change. As they moved into the shadows, Liam's mind was heavy with uncertainty, but also a newfound resolve. The night's darkness was no longer just a threat. It was a test of morality, and he was determined to face it. Liam awoke as the first rays of dawn pierced through the thick canopy, casting shimmering streaks of gold across the forest floor. The air was crisp and invigorating, carrying the scent of damp leaves and the distant, melodious chirping of early birds. He lay still for a moment, muscles aching from the night's exertions, yet a subtle calm was settling within him. The chaos of yesterday's conflict had receded into distant memory, replaced by a fragile hope that flickered faintly in his chest, fueled by the quiet resilience of this place. He shifted slightly, listening. The forest seemed alive with gentle sounds, leaves whispering in the breeze, birds calling to each other, the distant rush of stream. It was a scene of renewal, but beneath this serenity lurked the awareness of lingering threats. The poacher's presence still haunted the edges of his mind, a reminder that peace was delicate and could shatter at any moment. Elena and Marcus had already begun their work, their figures moving purposefully among the fallen trees and debris. Elena's face was streaked with dirt and sweat, her eyes sharp with determination. She knelt beside a battered shelter, its walls scarred but still standing firm. Marcus was nearby, hammering a splintered branch back into place, his movements precise and deliberate. Liam hesitated, then carefully approached, mindful of the loose stones and broken twigs scattered across the ground. "Good morning," Elena greeted softly, glancing up with a tired but warm smile. Her voice carried a gravelly edge from sleep, but was filled with quiet strength. "You're awake." Liam nodded, eyes drifting over the chaos of debris. His ears twitched as he caught the lively chirping of sparrows and the gentle rustling of leaves stirred by the breeze. The tension from the previous day still clung to him, but witnessing these two working with purpose sparked a flicker of trust. "I want to help," Liam rasped, voice hoarse from disuse. He took a cautious step forward, paused, gently pressing into the uneven earth. "We need to rebuild." Marcus looked up, his gaze narrowing slightly, but not unkindly. "You're already doing more than we could have hoped. Just stay clear of the heavier logs." Liam nodded again, feeling a weight settle on his shoulders. This act of cooperation was unfamiliar. Yet, seeing Elena and Marcus working in harmony made him believe that perhaps a new kind of alliance was possible, one that could bridge the gap between their worlds. The trio worked in a quiet rhythm, each absorbed in their tasks. Liam carefully gathered fallen branches, pulling them aside with gentle claws, mindful not to cause further damage. Elena handed Marcus tools with practiced efficiency, her movements smooth and precise. As the sun climbed higher, its warm glow seeped into the clearing, illuminating patches of vibrant green and gold that seemed to breathe life into the scene. Suddenly, a flock of small birds burst from a nearby bush, wings beating rapidly as they soared into the sky. Liam froze, watching them disappear into the distance. For a moment, he felt an inexplicable kinship with these fragile creatures, fleeing from unseen dangers, yet resilient enough to return. Their flight was a silent testament to survival, a symbol of hope amid uncertainty. Elena noticed his stillness and offered a gentle smile. "They're just birds," she said softly, "but their flight is a good sign. Life persists." Liam looked down at the ground, then back at her, a faint whisper of hope stirring within him. Maybe there's hope," he murmured, almost to himself. "For us, for the forest." Marcus set aside his hammer and approached, placing a reassuring hand on Liam's shoulder. His grip was firm but kind. The forest and its inhabitants have endured far worse than this. But rebuilding isn't just about fixing what's broken. We need to safeguard what remains. Liam's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where sunlight filtered through the treetops, casting dappled shadows on the undergrowth. The distant sound of a stream bubbling over rocks added a peaceful undertone. Yet beneath this calm, a persistent sense of danger lingered. The threat of poachers still loomed in the background, a reminder that their fragile peace could shatter at any moment. He stepped closer to Elena, a newfound resolve forming within him. "Can I stay and help? Not just with the repairs, but with everything." Elena studied him thoughtfully, her eyes searching. "We could use all the help we can get, but trust isn't built overnight." Liam lowered his head slightly, feeling the weight of her words. "Understand. I want to prove I can be trusted." Marcus nodded, a faint smile breaking through his rugged exterior. Then we'll see. Small acts add up. As the morning deepened, Liam found himself more engaged than he had been in a long time. The act of mending, of restoring what had been damaged, stirred a quiet sense of purpose within him. For the first time, he felt that his presence mattered, not just as a curious creature caught between two worlds, but as a guardian of both. The sun continued its ascent, bathing the forest in golden light. Birds flitted among the branches, their songs blending into the symphony of renewal. Liam inhaled deeply, savoring the fresh scent of growth and hope. A flicker of certainty ignited in his chest. This fragile moment could be the start of something new. He looked at Elena and Marcus, seeing not just humans, but allies, partners in rebuilding a delicate harmony. The realization brought a quiet confidence that perhaps he had found a place where he belonged, where his two natures could coexist and flourish. A small, tentative smile crossed Liam's face as he helped lift a fallen log into position. The world remained uncertain, but here, in this dawn-lit clearing, something vital was taking root, and he was determined to nurture it, to protect this fragile hope that had blossomed amid the shadows. The last light of day slipped behind the distant hills, casting a muted amber glow over the quiet village nestled at the forest's edge. Shadows stretched long across the uneven cobblestones, flickering softly as a cool breeze stirred the leaves and carried the scent of blooming jasmine and smoldering fires. The air was thick with a profound stillness, punctuated only by the distant murmur of villagers preparing for night. Laughter fading, fires crackling, life winding down. Liam stood atop the hill, his fur shimmering in the fading sun, ears twitching at the faint rustle of wind through the trees. Behind him, the forest stretched endlessly, its canopy aflame with crimson and gold, a silent witness to his reflection. He gazed outward, feeling the heaviness of his recent journey settle into his bones. The dangers faced, the trust earned, the fleeting moments of connection. Each memory intertwined with pride and a quiet nostalgia. Yet beneath it all was a lingering uncertainty about what lay ahead. He had traversed a long, treacherous path, but the future remained shrouded in shadows. A faint crackle of movement broke the silence. Liam's ears twitched sharply as Yuki emerged from behind a thicket of bushes, her cheeks flushed from the cool air. Her small frame moved with deliberate grace, eyes bright with anticipation. She carried a bundle wrapped tightly in cloth, her hands trembling slightly as she approached. "You've gone further than I thought possible," she said softly, her voice carrying both admiration and a hint of relief. Her gaze lingered on him, then lowered to the bundle. "I brought this for you, something to remind you of home, of what you're fighting for." Liam tilted his head, ears twitching in thought. His eyes flicked to the bundle, then back to her, a flicker of cautious curiosity crossing his face. "Why now?" he asked, voice husky but steady. "What's the purpose of this?" Yuki's smile was gentle but resolute. "Because I believe in what you're doing. The villagers talk about you, about how a wolf, of all creatures, has become a symbol of hope. They say your actions have shifted their view of the forest and its guardian." He hesitated, the weight of her words settling deep. Stories can be distorted. He murmured, eyes narrowing slightly. "But I hope they remember the truth, that strength isn't always loud or visible, and that sometimes hope comes in quiet forms. She stepped closer, her voice softening. Your actions have changed everything here. The villagers see you as more than a beast. They see you as a protector, a bridge between worlds. Your journey isn't just about survival anymore. It's about inspiring change. A sudden gust of wind swept through, lifting loose strands of her hair and stirring the fallen leaves. Liam watched her, sensing the significance of her words. For a moment, he felt an unfamiliar sense of belonging, like a thread woven into something larger than himself. His struggles, his sacrifices had planted seeds in this community. Now they began to sprout. He lowered his head slightly, ears twitching as he listened to the distant sounds of the village. Children's laughter echoing from the streets, the crackle of fires, the hum of life preparing for night. The forest behind him remained silent, yet alive with stories of its own, stories that now included him as a part of their narrative. Yuki reached out, placing a gentle paw on his snout. You're more than just a wild creature, she whispered. You're a guardian now, a symbol of hope that can unite even the most unlikely allies. Liam's gaze lingered on her paw, feeling the warmth and sincerity behind her touch. Pride swelled within him, tempered by humility. He had always sought understanding, a place to belong. Perhaps now, that place was not solely among the trees or with humans, but somewhere in between, a bridge linking both worlds. A distant bell tolled softly, marking the hour. The village lights flickered to life, lanterns casting a golden glow like fireflies against the encroaching darkness. Liam's eyes darted toward the horizon, where the last rays of the sun vanished behind the hills. The sky darkened, stars beginning to shimmer faintly overhead. He took a measured step forward, then another, feeling the cool earth beneath his paws. Every movement was deliberate, a conscious affirmation of his new path. His instincts, those primal whispers, still tugged at him, warning of dangers lurking in the shadows, reminding him of his true nature. But now, a new confidence rooted in the trust he had earned began to grow within him. Yuki followed quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Your story will inspire others. Show them that fear and prejudice can be overcome. Perhaps one day, the village and the forest will truly coexist, thanks to what you've begun. Liam paused, turning back to her. I hope so, he said softly. But I understand now that change starts with small steps. Tonight, we plant a seed. Tomorrow, it will take root. A gentle breeze returned, swirling around them, carrying the scent of earth and budding hope. Shadows lengthened, and the village's glow intensified, inviting the night to settle over the land. Liam looked out over the peaceful scene, feeling the heartbeat of life around him. For the first time, he sensed that his journey was not ending, but transforming, becoming something greater. A faint smile touched his lips as he cast a final glance toward the horizon. Somewhere beyond the flickering lights and whispering trees, new stories awaited. Stories of a wolf who dared to change the world, of a girl who believed in him, and of a future where harmony between forest and village could flourish. As he stepped forward into the twilight, a quiet certainty settled within him. His story was no longer just about survival or struggle. It had become a beacon, a call for others to imagine a different world, one where trust and understanding bloom amid shadows and light alike. And perhaps, in that hope, lay the greatest transformation of all.